Hi there, thank you for joining me today. I am delighted to be joined by Michelle Hoskin today. Hi, Michelle, how are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you for having me very much on this dark and wintry evening.
Yeah, it's a bit gloomy. It's a bit gloomy.
It
Just by way of introduction, Michelle Hoskin heads up the financial certification business called Standards International. And she's also an international speaker and very proud single mum to her lovely daughter, who I think, from everything I keep seeing on social media, wants to follow in Michelle's footsteps. Love her.
does.
um, so recently, Michelle became a certified financial abuse specialist. I think I'm right in saying
Hmm.
that that's the right way of saying it. Fantastic. So I wanted Michelle to come along and talk to us today, just to tell us a bit more about what financial abuse is and how you can recognise the signs and what you can do about it. So would you start off by just talking to us a bit about what financial abuse is?
With pleasure, with pleasure. Yes, you're quite right. I did the financial abuse specialist certification course, which Standards International launched earlier this year, 2020. Financial abuse is effectively where money or the finances, the money, is used in some negative way of control. So, for example, there are some horrific stories, but some of the more obvious ones are, when you're in a relationship and the husband and the wife limits access to financial resources, limits access to financial information by in a way to control a situation. So it may be, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend. We don't have enough money. You can't have that. Um, we don't have enough money, so you need to do that. Um, I earn all the money. You don't earn the money because you're at home with the children. Therefore, I have the say over how and when we spend it. Um, it's effectively, and it doesn't have to be in husband wife, marital parent, relationships. It can be in um, elder to young grandchildren or children relationships. It can be in business partner relationships. It can be in friendship relationships, housemates, anywhere where money is used as a tool, or as a vehicle by which to initiate some sort of control, often in a negative context, is effectively financial abuse. Also known as coercive control, but more often than not, it's classed as financial abuse.
There was an article that I tweeted a few times about, I think it was last week in the paper, about
Hmm.
somebody who had accrued something like £50,000 worth of debt on behalf of
Hmm.
her husband,
Yeah.
essentially making her take out credit cards and loans to buy him things. So that would be
Yeah.
an example, I assume, of what we're talking about.
Yeah, and also, things like, where, yeah, I mean, take having somebody take out a loan on your behalf under your name. That would be a way of discrediting your credit rating, or deliberate. The thing is with the word abuse, abuse is a negative word. So any aspect of activity with a negative connotation around money is effectively abuse. And that's the simplest way of doing it. It could be, we're best friends. I take out a loan in good faith that you're going to pay because you can't get credit, and you abuse our friendship, but you use money as the mechanism by which you initiate that abuse. It's effectively you're withholding money from me, and there's some negative, what's the word, there's negative and bad meaning behind the activity.
Okay, so I often find that in couples, when I'm working with couples who are separating or divorcing or dissolving a civil
Hmm.
partnership, they've often there's one person who's looked after the money and the other person
Yeah.
has been less active. Now, it might not be that they know nothing about it, but it might be. Is there a difference between that, between playing to your strengths in your relationship and financial abuse?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, I've been through a few relationship breakdowns. As you've experienced with your own work that you do as a financial planner, specializing in divorce and this area. I think if you're in a relationship where there's trust, money is often one of those things that either A, you take on because that's your thing, or you own the purse strings, or you hold the purse strings, or you are the income generator, therefore you're in charge of the family's finances, or whatever it is. And let's flip it into two halves. So I'm the person who is in charge of the family's money. Okay, if I've got a dodgy side, or if I've got a narcissistic tendency, or I'm a control freak, or I want to somehow take control over the relationship, money is a great way of doing it. Now, let's imagine that and we've met them. We've got most of my clients and your contacts are financial planners and advisors, and most of them in their family units take care of the money. That's whether they're male or female, because that's what they do. Some of them even go and be the treasurer of the local PTA, or there's some sort of community involvement, and they're in charge of the money. Now, without those narcissistic qualities, that's absolutely fine, because they're doing that in good faith. However, if there's a tendency to want to control negatively, one is, like I say, is the best way of doing it. So it's okay if you're in charge of the money, but if you are the person who is not in charge of the money, you and I will both agree that 100% everybody in a relationship needs to understand the financial position within the business, within the relationship, within the family. It doesn't matter whether you're holding the purse strings or not. Money makes the world go round. It's the root of all evil. It's the biggest thing that can gift us anything we want in our lives. We should all have an awareness of it and a relationship with it. So if you are the person who is not the person that holds the purse strings, I would definitely urge you to take a bit of an interest, even if it's not a huge interest, but a bit of an interest. How much does it cost to run this house? Ask your partner, your husband, your wife. What's our biggest outlay? What do we spend most of our money on? I mean, I went and pre-lockdown, went to a dinner party with a guy, and his wife literally had no idea how much a loaf of bread cost. She orders it on Waitrose, it comes online, totally oblivious. And I was having this financial abuse conversation. She's like, oh my God, darling, are you abusing me? She was talking to her husband across the dinner table. And he went, you wouldn't even know if I was. Like, literally, honestly. And I said, but you need to just be a bit more aware. She went, darling, I have no idea. I have no idea. So I think, she's in a relationship where, I'm sure he's taking good care of the finances and not using it but I don't know, like, maybe he is, maybe he isn't, but she has no idea. So I think everybody, male or female, whatever, needs to have some understanding over the finances of their family unit. And definitely every single person, I believe, should have a independent bank account that is their own. The worst cases of financial abuse are where and their stories are where the abused has literally relinquished all control over money. They've got no personal bank accounts. They're only allowed to spend what they're given. If they are the higher earner, they're giving all their money to their partner to spend on whatever they want. It's like, in the olden days, we used to call it tipping up. The husband used to come in from work and tip up to the wife, and the wife would manage all the food bills. And, my grandma and granddad lived like that. Well, whether it probably happens today, and I'm sure it does, but it's just about having that understanding over the finances and the money side of the unit, whether it be a family unit, business unit, to show some interest, even if it's a little bit.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. We more often than not will work with I'll call them weaker financial party. So probably the one
Yeah.
who's not the person who holds all the purse strings that you've just
Yeah.
described, and very often they have no idea, unfortunately,
No.
of any
Yeah.
aspect of the finances. And I do think it's important that they do. So, if from everything that you've said today, somebody felt that they were in a position where they were being financially abused, where do they go? What's the first step?
So the thing with financial abuse, and it's similar to lots of different types of abuse. There's an element of grooming involved. So coercive control and financial abuse, often, as with many types of abuse, starts as tiny, tiny little signs. So I had a girlfriend that came round a few months ago, and she was all upset, and she said, he started asking me, what on earth do you spend £80 a week on food? Why is it that Fred and his wife only spend £60 a week and we spend £80 or whatever? And she said, because there's four of us and there's two of them. And I said to her, you want to watch that, because that could quite easily get out of hand, right? So what she said to me, she said, so what I've done is I have decided I'm only going to spend £60, and when he realizes there's not enough food in a lot and all this, I got into that conversation. So the bottom line is, it's incremental, it's tiny little signs. So the thing is, if you feel that you feel uneasy about a situation, irrespective of whether you generate any of that money, and this is often the case when you've got a partner in the family who isn't generating any income, is staying at home with children, or isn't working through illness, or whatever it might be, if you feel like that didn't feel right, that statement or that sentence or that action, raise it. In what they need to say, if you are the victim in this case, is, when you've just said that to me, I didn't feel very good about it. I didn't like how you said that to me. I didn't feel it was fair on me. Or, really the point of that, the sort of the description around the speaking, the words, is to say, I felt like I was inadequate. I felt like you were belittling me. I felt like you were questioning me. And the reason you very instantly go into I feel is because if you said to that person, and you said this, or you did that, they can say, no, I didn't. I never said that. But nobody can ever argue with how you feel. So when you did this to me, when you did this, I felt like this. Why did you do that? Why did you say that? So it's kind of this flow of conversation. Now, what will be interesting is their reaction. It's like when you bust somebody for cheating on you. You accusing me? What you accusing me of? Well, blatantly, if they're doing that, they're as guilty as hell, right? So the reaction is probably the most important thing to look out for. So if you confront somebody with your feelings and their reaction is totally off the scale, it is likely that they are sensing that they may have done something that is maybe not quite right. And therefore their reaction is, there's no need to react like that. I'm just asking, we can talk openly. Um, the flip side of that, which is equally important, I did a webinar recently, and the guy came off the phone, off the interview, stopped hitting the record button, and he said, gosh, Michelle, he said, I'm listening to you. And he said, I've just realized, I think my brother is financially abusing his wife. Right.
Oh,
Right. And he said, I've known for ages that something's not right, but I just couldn't put my finger on it. It wasn't violence, it wasn't sexual abuse. I know that, but there was something. And he said, I've just realized he's a narcissist. So effectively, he was basically saying that he'd spotted this behavior in one of his family members, and he felt that he was abusing his wife. So I said to him, well, what you need to say to him or the wife is, let's imagine it's to his wife. I mean, first of all, you've got to check to see if there's actually a case for abuse. So I would say to the sister-in-law in that case, when Fred did that, I didn't feel quite right about that. How did you feel about that? Does he do that often? Does that upset you? How does that make you feel? So first of all, I think if you spot financial abuse in somebody else, or you approach the abused or potentially abused and ask, when I saw this and this happened, I didn't feel really great about that. Did that offend you? How do you feel about that? An open dialogue. If it's to the abuser, or you spot it in an abuser, same sort of dialogue. when you did that to Samantha, I felt really uneasy that you did that, or I felt that wasn't really nice that you did that. Why did you do that? Do you do that often? Is that something that's just how you are? Almost like chew away at the conversation a little bit at a time, but it's got to be brought to the forefront. It must. Any the thing with any type of abuse, if you suspect it, speak out, because it might just save that person's life. And one of the reasons that I got involved in financial abuse, creating the training and the specialism for professional advisors, was because in the majority of financial abuse cases, there is domestic violence, there is some sort of physical abuse. So, but it doesn't work the same way around. In domestic violence cases, there's not always financial abuse, but there's a different balance when it's financial abuse first. It escalates to physical abuse and then sexual abuse as well. So, if you speak out because you spot something, because money is a very public thing, people are spending money. If you hear a girlfriend or a friend say, I can't buy that, Fred wouldn't like it, or no, I can't buy that because I know we don't have a lot of money. Yeah, I live in a £2 million house. Like, what's that? It's you really can. It's a very People speak about it very openly because they don't recognize it as a form of abuse. So it's very easy to spot it for sure. And you need to speak out because it could save somebody's life, which is what I've been speaking about for so long, which is financial planners and people in advisory positions are very much about changing lives. Well, I'm in this case, which is why we created this specialism, I'm all about saving them because it absolutely could. So you see it, speak, simple.
Fantastic. Michelle, thank you so much
My
for
pleasure.
talking to us about that, and really hope that this video does go some way to helping a few more people out.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tamsin.